we finally have a new fast electric type in the format. This Pokemon hits hard. This Pokemon hits fast. Of course, we are talking about Miraidon in today's Regulation G guide. We will be going over how to use it for you guys shortly. And just to kick things off, fast electric types are nothing new in Pokemon, right? We've had the Sun and Moon era where we had Tapu Koko. We had the Sword and Shield era where we had Regieleki. And now we're going to see it here, and we're going to see Miraidon. Now, granted, we actually haven't seen a lot of Miraidon in the metagame. And I think that's mainly because Miraidon is going to hit hard, Miraidon is going to hit fast, and Miraidon technically, while not being insanely frail, doesn't really appreciate taking that many hits. It's also very simple to shut down in a single restricted format. We'll get into that in a bit. Now, of course, you are looking at Miraidon's ability similar to the Koraidon. You set your terrain in this case, not the sun, but you set your terrain, and you're going to get that special attack boost of 1.3. Well, the terrain is active, which is incredible. Having electric terrain is really, really strong. We finally have a good electric terrain sitter again. Sorry, Pinkerton fans, but yeah, no. But regardless of that, you pair this with your big signature move in Electro Drift. Now you've got an electric type attack in electric terrain with the boost from your Hadron engine, doing absolutely ridiculous damage to opposing Pokemon. And if it's super effective, it's also going to get another 1.3 times boost. So it's an absolute beast of a move, an absolute beast of a Pokemon. Really, really good ability, and synergizes very, very well with the future paradoxes, including like the bundles, the Iron Hands, right? I've even seen a little bit of Iron Jugulus along those lines, but I don't think that one's a little bit more out there, but still probably pretty consistent, right? Regardless, though, you've got a lot of really good coverage moves. When you go this fast, because you are base 135, when you can go this fast and hit this hard, it's very, very difficult to justify not going max, right? However, I'm going to give you guys a few reasons to not go max when we get into the sets. But overall, you're going to be hitting hard. You're going to be hitting fast with this piece. That is going to be the concept with Miraidon for more often than not. And you get a lot of good moves, right? You get Electro Drift and Draco Meteor. And to be honest, this is all you need. You tend to see a Volt Switch a lot as well, just because you can come in, hit something super, super hard, get on out so you don't have to take a hit, come back in later, hit something super, super hard again, get on out with the Volt Switch again, right? You've got a lot of potential just by simple cycling around with Volt Switch. Big offensive damage, switch back out. It also gives you terrain control. And that's what I was trying to touch upon earlier, where it's very simple to hinder Miraidon's offensive capabilities with Rillaboom. And Rillaboom, or switching the ability to terrain, maybe even Indeedee, when you have terrain setters that are really good and really strong in the format naturally, like Rillaboom, chances are you are playing a good chunk of teams that have Rillaboom on them. Now, that's not necessarily they have Rillaboom to beat Miraidon, right? You are not getting counter-teamed if you're playing a Rillaboom as Miraidon. Rillaboom is just a very good Pokemon in the meta right now. So having my ability shut off by a naturally good Pokemon in the metagame is a little annoying, right? And when I'm utilizing my own only restricted slot for that to simply happen, it gets frustrating. However, there's still ways to play around that. Volt Switch is one of them. But I do think when you can have Miraidon plus a restricted that absolutely hates on Rillaboom, just get a restricted that bullies the Rillabooms down. Maybe like Miraidon Cali Ice could be very, very cool. A little bit of weird synergy there, but you get what I'm trying to say, right? Just have something beside the thing that could absolutely get rid of Rillaboom. Now, granted, you can do that without a restricted slot, right? So you can still leverage Miraidon. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about how you can leverage Miraidon in the guide today. But overall, there's a lot. You hit hard, you hit fast, and you go crazy. Without stalling anymore, let's go into the first set here. And I opted for choice specs. Like I said, my concept here was to hit hard, was to hit fast. And honestly, in this case, I said, I'm so fast. What if they just can't stop me from hitting first? Right? Like, what if they just can't stop me? Like, a lot of the times versus Miraidon, if I can get to fake out and I can cycle to a reposition, if I prevent that from happening, right, and I go Terra Ghost, and all of a sudden they can't fake me out, all of a sudden I Terra Ghost, I remove Incineroar from the field, or I Terra Ghost, they try to fake me out, I remove its partner from the field, and their cycle is a lot less scary, a lot less intimidating when they can no longer cycle around with those fake outs, and that's what I'm getting at with Terra Ghost. Now, this could very easily be a Terra Electric. This could very easily be a Terra Fairy for a more defensive typing, right? There are a lot of options on your Terra type. I just wanted to feature Ghost. I wanted to showcase Ghost because I do think it's something that's kind of a little less talked about, where if you can just stop the cycle, like those fake outs from happening, it's really, really tough to reposition around Miraidon, because like Electro Drift in electric terrain from a choice specs Miraidon is doing like at least 50% to the entire format. Like Amoonguss, I think, still takes 50% from this. It's disgusting, right? So like when you can just stop them from clicking fake out into you and you just put out big damage in return, it's incredible, right? And we've seen a few people actually try Covert Cloak. I'm not as big of a fan as Covert Cloak, but you can go Covert Cloak and like choice specs. Covert Cloak and Terra Electric, right? So make up that damage output that you're not getting from the specs with your Terra type. And then you have Covert Cloak, so you can't get faked out, you can't get snarled, which I think is actually very, very cool on this piece as well. Regardless, though, you just close this set out pretty normally. Electro Drift, Volt Switch, as we talked about in the beginning. Draco Meteor or Dragon Pulse. I think Draco Meteor is really, really strong on this Pokemon. I think since more often than not, you are clicking Volt Switch and Electro Drift anyways, the one time you need to click Draco Meteor is going to be like either an end game where you need to do absurd amounts of damage to a dragon type, or maybe an early game where you just want to remove something and then you're going to get off the field later on anyways, right? I don't think you're really going to be on the field to spam like 6-7 Draco Meteors in a row. That's where you kind of want Dragon Pulse instead. I think Draco Meteor is perfectly fine. And then I chose Dazzling Gleam as the coverage. Hits those dragons without having to be committal to the Draco Meteor. Hits those dragons that maybe are supported by those Follow Me's. I think it's a very strong option here. I think it is probably the correct option as your Dazzling Gleam setter, but as your Miraidon fourth move. But Dazzling Gleam is a very strong option here, right? You've got some other cool things as well, like Flash Cannon, but you don't need that. It doesn't really add much for you, right? I think Overheat is very, very funny. However, Overheat was a lot funnier on these Pokemon back in the day, where you'd have like Manectric hitting Overheat into the Ferrothorn that thought it was safe on the field, right? We don't really have much of that anymore. But technically, Steel Grass type would be annoying here. So if there were Steel Grass types in the format, Overheat I could definitely see becoming a thing. Right, now you got a few other things. Terra Blast is fun. Maybe like Terra Fairy, Terra Blast is something that you could rock with as well. In case you didn't want Dazzling Gleam, that's also fair. Right, you can just go. I wouldn't recommend Thunderbolt. It's literally a worse Electro Drift. There is never a reason to click it. Right, Thunder is cool if you're on like a rain team of some sort. I don't love it, but you can do it. Right, but regardless, you've got a lot of options. This is generally the 4 moves that you're going to see. And on spread, like I said, guys, you just want to hit hard, hit fast. I opted for a little bit of general bulk here because you do not need more than 188, and you can get a lot from 60 HP. Right? This 60 HP allows me to survive Dazzling Gleams from modest Fluttermanes, from modest choice specs Fluttermanes all the time. It just allows me to have that little bit of bulk that gives me something extra. Like, I really only calc for the Fluttermane, I'm going to be honest. Right? But by calcing for the Fluttermane, it gives me that generalized bulk that I have now. 188 is absolutely shredding the entire format when I'm a choice specs Miraidon anyways. And just having that extra bulk is very, very nice. And then I wanted to go max speed. And similar to the Miraidon, how I was saying you can get away going Adamant, right? There is a lot of weird speed ties in this area, right? We have a Shenpao that is a speed tie. We have Miraidon that could be a speed tie. We've got a Fluttermane that could be a speed tie. Right, all those Pokemon are likely you are going to see at least one, if not more of them, at like a regional if you were to attend one, right? So that is an awkward speed tier. If I am saying my point with this Pokemon is to hit hard and hit fast, I may as well be faster. Now, you could try to modify this, go modest, make a lot more of a bulky set, maybe hit a little bit harder, right? You can absolutely do that. I didn't want to feature that today because I do think, especially since we're still so early format, hitting hard, hitting fast is probably the way you're looking at right now, the way you're looking at approaching most of these Miraidons, right? And that leads us into the next one of hitting hard, hitting fast, and it's going to be Life Orb, okay? And once again, this is basically everything you get, everything you wanted from the Choice Specs variant with the ability to protect. I opted for Terra Electric here because basically by running Life Orb, I am saying I am doing damage. So I might as well commit to damage. Once again, you can easily go Terra Fairy, Terra Ghost. Same concepts apply, guys. You can always interchange what you like from one set into the other set, right? And I wanted to showcase Electric here because Life Orb, Terra Electric, Electro Drift in electric terrain, boosted by the Hadron engine. I mean, Yeah, no, that just sounds really, really strong to me. You are pretty much hitting the entire format super hard as well. Not a new concept. I've talked about it in the first few times already. But Electro Drift, Volt Switch, this is what you're seeing. These are the damage outputs that you're seeing from this Pokemon. Draco Meteor still hits really, really hard. I still like that piece there. And then, of course, you just have the ability to protect as well. Draco, I would always go Draco Meteor over Dragon Pulse on the Life Orb set, especially if you opt for a Volt Switch, because you can drop a Draco Meteor, then you can Volt Switch off the next turn because you're able to switch your moves and just reset those drops, right? That's always a very strong option as well, right? And once again, just hit hard, hit fast. This was the concept I wanted to approach with these Miraidons, and I opted for the optimal Life Orb HP stat, which was 179. Anything ending in 9 is always optimal for the Life Orb. But overall, once again, guys, same concept as before. You can just go boom, and you can just go ahead and say, I'm going to do damage. There's really no reason not to do this, right? But once again, I wanted to showcase that, okay, well, now I'm good. I'm covering optimizing my Life Orb. Very minor change, but it's something that's to consider moving forward, right? If you're trying to optimize something, I would optimize it like this. You're still hitting really, really hard. You're hitting ridiculously fast as well, right? I like this concept. Once again, you can bulk this Pokemon up. I didn't want to spend time making a bulky Miraidon spread in a metagame that is changing by the week, if not quicker than that, right? There is a lot going on in the metagame right now. By trying to sit down and make a Miraidon bulky Miraidon spread, it just didn't feel right. With this Pokemon right now, I want to hit hard. I want to hit fast, right? And on the third set, I do want to showcase a few options here. And I didn't actually fill it out because I didn't think... Look, once again, I don't think there's a lot of relevant calcs that I'm going to say in this video that are not going to just change by 2 days after the video has been put out, right? So I think Assault Vest is very, very cool. Once again, just allowing you to sit on the field longer, maybe cycle around a little bit with Volt Switch, being able to switch back in, right? Use it as a terrain setter as opposed to just an absolute, like, delete button, right? So use it as a little bit more of a bulky piece, which I think is a very cool concept. Once again, I don't think it's the time for this kind of a concept on a Miraidon right now, but I do think there could be a time when a bulkier AV Miraidon becomes an option. Now, one other thing I didn't really talk about, I'm going to put leftovers on it for right now. I don't think I would go leftovers on a set like this, but the other thing I want to talk about is a Combine, right? So now you can go ahead and be really, really bulky because you're going to be getting to +1, right? And the concept here would be, once again, you probably still want to go pretty quickly. I don't know if you want to go max, but at least outpacing the Adamant Koraidons and the Shenpaos and stuff like that is probably a pretty decent spot to sit, right? You then get to go ahead and say, I don't really need special attack because I'm going to be trying to set Calm Mind up. And you can probably just put it in, I don't know, we'll go like 76 or something, right? Like, just, actually, I don't like that. I'll go 84, that way it's even, so when I'm at +1, it doesn't have to round down or anything like that, right? And then you can just all of a sudden dump a bunch of bulk. Once again, I don't have calcs for this, but you can probably start living Miraidon stuff, Calyrex stuff. You can start living more than Miraidon really should be capable of living, especially after a Calm Mind, right? So you probably go a little bit bulkier in, like, HP. I think 196 is or is it 192? One of them is the leftovers recovery number, but that's chill. And then, you probably bulk it up a little bit more on the physical side, because once you get a couple Calm Minds up, and then you can just start protecting, right? And you have Electro Drift. You are destroying the format. You get the +1, you are destroying the format. On a set like this, you're probably looking to go Fairy or Ghost. I would lean towards Fairy, right? This spread is horrid. Do not take this spread exactly, guys. I just wanted to drag some sliders around to kind of give you the concept of what I was going for. Do not take this spread, right? And then here you'd probably go Dragon Pulse. You don't really want to remove those Calm Mind boosts from you. So you're probably going to go Dragon Pulse. Once again, the problem with this one, though, is this one gets shut down a lot simpler by Rillaboom just simply switching onto the board, right? Here, it's like if Rillaboom switches onto the board, I can Volt Switch out and reset. Here, if Rillaboom switches onto the board after I've got a Calm Mind or two up, I can't really reset my terrain. My terrain is just kind of gone. Now, it's not a problem because at that point I'll be like +1 or +2, so I'm still doing a good chunk of damage. But Miraidon really, really does love having the terrain up for it. It is such a threat when that terrain can be up. If you can have the proper terrain control with Miraidon, I think it's very, very cool. Something that's an interesting concept, actually. You know how you see, like, Sunny Day on Torn or Rain Dance on Torn to have Kyogre or the Weather Setters have their proper terrain or have the proper weather, I wonder if you could do something like an electric terrain Thunderous, which would be a little bit weird, I will admit, because you do have double electric type at that point. Granted, they wouldn't share a weakness. Oh, they would share ice. They would share an ice weakness, but never mind. You know what I mean? Could you go for that prankster electric terrain, calling to like cover for the fact that maybe they're going to try and switch the terrain? It's something, it's a concept. Once again, do not take this spread. I wanted to just drag some sliders around. In fact, I'm going to remove it so nobody does take it, just to show you how clear I am on do not take that spread that I had put in there. But the concept was there, right? You slow it down a little bit. You don't need as much special attack. You bulk it up, and then you have Calm Mind, and you just use this as a setup piece that's going to do massive damage, right? I think all of these sets are viable. I think AV has a slight chance of sneaking into the meta, but I like hitting hard with this Pokemon. I would immediately, if I'm just going to throw this onto a team, I am throwing this onto a team as either a Choice Specs piece or a Life Orb piece, at least when the team starts, unless you're really wanting to build around like a Calm Mind Miraidon, which is still very valid, right? I think there's a lot to be said about Miraidon. This Pokemon hits hard. This Pokemon hits fast. It is going to do exactly that in this metagame, and it is going to be a threat if it's left unchecked. I think it's going to be even worse or even harder to deal when there's a second restricted beside it. But with that, I have rambled long enough for Miraidon now. And if you guys do enjoy these types of guides, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. And of course, I really do appreciate it. But with that, I'm going to get on out of here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in a future video.